Okay, here we go. Welcome to the Risers Hub podcast where wellness, empowerment, and personal growth live. I hope everybody out there is doing well and not getting too caught up with all the news, everything that's going on out there. It can be draining and tiring, but we will and we can get through it. I hope that we all are leading each day with love and kindness, but with tenacity and grace. So today we're going to have an empowerment episode. That's what Nia has coined these episodes, because today I'm honored to have someone who has pushed forward, made moves, and became the first Black female triathlete, Miss Sika Henry. Welcome.
Thank you, Nicole.
A lot of us as women have been faced with challenges or are facing challenges, and I think that Sika is the perfect person to talk about how to push through those challenges and not just push through them, but not go around them and face everything that we need to face. So Sika is a NCAA All-American high jumper who transitioned into marathon running and later triathlons. We will learn how and why she made the transitions, and I think you'll be very surprised. And I just have to say, between you and Nia, I will never be on the same running field with you because Sika is a very fast marathon runner. I watch every single mile. I watch every single time you post, and I'm like, yeah, no. Maybe 10 years ago, but not right now. So hello, Sika, and welcome to the Risers Up podcast.
Thank you. It's funny. I guess comparison is a thief of joy because I do not consider myself that fast. I've seen the times that people are putting out, and I'm just like, gosh,
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I'm the same way. I think that I'm like a speed demon, and I see somebody else, and I'm like, nope.
yeah.
But we just keep trekking along. So I just want to welcome you to the Risers Hub podcast. And to start, I want to talk about what inspired you to start endurance sports, whether it was the high jump back in college or marathons post-college. What got you started?
Well, I've just always grown up as an athlete. My parents always had me in sports. I don't know life before sports. And I swam all 4 years of high school. I wasn't super talented, but I did swim all 4 years of high school. And I would watch track and field and stuff on TV with my parents and my grandpa, and I would watch the New York City Marathon. I'm originally from the New York City metro area. And I was goofing around in track or in gym class my senior year of high school, and the track coach was like, "You can jump really high, you should come out." And so I took him up on it. I had already gotten into Tufts University at that point. I was considering swimming there. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, but I mean, academics was my priority at the time. But I did. I went out for the track team my senior year, and I jumped pretty high the first time. And I guess I just discovered some untapped talent that I had there. And we contacted Coach Chris Morwick at Tufts University. And I was a walk-on, and I ended up doing track and field all 4 years. But I thought the mile was a long distance event. One of my roommates was on the cross country team, and she'd have to do like 10, 12-mile runs on Sunday, which I thought was insane at the time. So
Yes.
I didn't think my path would ever be in endurance sports. That just came years later.
Wow. And then how long did it take you between, because I know when I finished college, you're right, a mile seems so far away because I was a 400-meter runner in college. And one of my girlfriends introduced me to 5K runs. And I remember my first one, I fell in love with it right away. And I wasn't running fast or anything. It was just the diversity of people out there, the smiles that everyone had, just the energy. So how long did it take you from, college to adulthood to get into endurance sports? And then what was your first long distance event?
Yeah. Well, after I graduated, I moved back and I started working in New York City, and I worked in finance. I had a degree in economics, and I was working really long hours. I wasn't working out anymore. I wasn't part of a track club or team or anything like that. And I started to gain a little weight, and I'm like, maybe I'll just start running just to stay in shape. So I was running a little on the elliptical, nothing crazy, but I figured I needed a little more motivation than that if I was going to stick with it. So the marathon popped in my head, and I knew you had to either qualify or go through the lottery in order to get to the New York City Marathon. So I saw that there was the Atlantic City Marathon, and I'm like, great, good. I can just register, pay for it. I'll do that one. Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't train properly at all for it. I think I did technically 2 long runs, maybe a 15 and an 18 miler, Yeah,
Okay.
I just was not prepared at all for it, and I went out there, and by, like, mile 17, I was puking and walking and, like, why did I sign up for this? I hadn't even done a half marathon. I hadn't done a
Well, I was
10K.
wondering, you said marathon. You didn't even say 5K. Like,
Yeah. Well, I think I had done 2 5Ks, but, like, 24 minutes maybe, I don't know.
yeah.
And that felt like that. And yeah, so I just hopped in that marathon and it was a miserable experience. And it was so bad that at one point, I don't know, I might have been at mile 22. I saw a spectator on the side of the road and I asked to use her phone so that I could call my best friend to come get me. But she didn't answer the phone. So I had to finish the
You had to finish
marathon.
it.
Yeah.
Oh
So I
my gosh.
crazy though is I actually broke 4 hours a day with all that walking and puking. So I'm
Are
like,
you
"Great."
serious?
I was
Oh
like, "I
my
can
gosh. I
actually
can't memorize
train."
4 hours.
Yeah,
Oh my
figured
gosh.
if I trained for it, then I
Yeah. And so then
go
when you were
deserve.
done with the event, were you like, okay, I'm not doing this ever again? And then you eventually did it? Or you're like, oh my God, I just did that. I got to do it again.
I
There's one or two things that you think
It
of
was
after you're
going
done.
through my head, like, I know I can do it again and I can do it better if I prepare
Okay.
for it. And at the time, I was in a long distance relationship. The person I was with was in Virginia Beach and I was in New York City.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
it was so hard to find time to do anything working those hours. And we were tired of the long distance. And whenever I go visit him, it's like, oh, well, people get off work at 5 and they have this whole life. And so
Yeah.
I relocated and I had a lot more time on my hands. And I found a running group out there in Virginia Beach. And then
Mhm.
that's when I started getting in longer runs. And I did a half marathon at Shamrock, which is a really popular race out here.
Yes.
And yeah, but it took, oh my gosh, 10 years before I did another marathon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So then you between that first or between that time and then the 10 years later, you were just working. You're just doing you're just living life.
I was working, I was active, I was doing 5Ks and half marathons. And then I we ended up getting married, which did not last long at all. We talked about transparency here and
Mm.
it threw a curveball for me. I wasn't expecting the dramatic change in my life at the time. And I went into a depression and didn't want to get out of the bed, didn't want to be around people, and it was just got really unhealthy. And I knew I
Mhm.
needed a distraction. And I have this habit of, oh, when I need a shift or something else positive to focus on, I just commit to something else. And for whatever reason, I had always wanted to try a triathlon because I grew up swimming.
Mm.
I could run. All I needed was a bike. And it
Mhm.
just so happens that I went online and there was gonna be a triathlon, a sprint triathlon, 2 weeks from that time that I looked online, and so I just registered on a whim.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then did you get hooked from there or
Yeah, I did actually. I went to Dick's and got a mountain bike, and then I bought some swim stuff. I joined the local community center and started swimming, and yeah, it was a good distraction, and it's funny how when you start getting passionate about something, your life shifts in a positive way without realizing it sometimes. Like, I started eating healthier. I
Mhm.
started going to bed a little earlier. I started just changing little things in my life to help me, complete this first true endurance event that I was excited about. So, yeah,
Right.
then I went and did the try and yeah, it was fun. I didn't know what I was doing. I came in close to last place, but I had so much fun.
You know, it's funny, I heard you say that you got a mountain bike. That was my first bike in my first duathlon because I did the sprint duathlons over and over and over again because I was going through a divorce. And it's interesting because when you're racing a multi-sport like that, you are always thinking. You
Yes.
know, when you're running, yes, you think, but you could be looking at the flowers or the
Right.
statues or whatever. You're not really, but when you have to run, get on that bike or get in the water,
Mhm.
your brain is always on and you have
Yes.
to
Yeah.
and what that does for you, I can relate when you said you were depressed, but then it moved you into like a better way of living. You're always thinking while you're racing, but then when you're not racing, all you're thinking about is the race.
Yes, exactly.
And like because for me, I don't know if it happened to you, but for me, when I first started running, I would watch other people perform. And I
Mhm.
mean, it's all walks of life. And
That's
you don't have to look any certain way to do these events because I've had people who are 3 times bigger than me pass me on the bike,
Yeah,
on the
same,
run, and
same.
yeah. And
Right.
so like I don't judge anybody. And but I watch them and I study them. So the next time I get out there, I know what I have to do. So, you know, how did it help you with your depression? How long was your depression? And did you kind of go up and down with it, or did it kinda just pull you straight out of that?
Oh, it was such a weird thing how it all happened because I found that every time I started feeling down, um, a run would help. So
Mm.
I started working out way more than I was realizing it. It wasn't like I was working out like a fiend to lose weight or something. It was to feel better. And so even if I did a run earlier in the day, like later on in the day, I'm like, oh, I need that feeling, that high again, that I guess dopamine hit. And so then I would go to the pool or I get on the bike. And before you know it, I'm like literally training like a triathlete without having a coach or anything. It wasn't
Right.
until later that I really understood structured training. But I found that every time I was feeling bad, I knew what kept my spirits up. And
Mhm.
so I actually, for that first year, I raced every weekend. Not a
Wow.
triathlon every weekend, but I would find something. It was a
Mhm.
5K, 10K, a half marathon. And so around the Hampton Roads area, I just started running all the time. And when I first started doing it, I couldn't break 20 minutes in a 5K. But then as soon as I started
Mhm.
swimming and cycling and developing an aerobic base, all of a sudden it was just like I ran a 5K and I ran it in, I don't know, low 18. And I was like, whoa, where did this come
Wow.
from? So it was all very exciting. And when that happens, you start feeling like, where can I take this? And
Yep.
how good can I get?
Right.
And then another thing I noticed, especially in the triathlon space, was how the lack of representation and diversity, and that I was one of the only Black people out there and
Mhm.
one of the only Black women. And so I started looking into that as well and trying to understand the sport and, who were people that came before me that paved the way and things like that. So my life, I was still working full time, corporate job, but outside of that, my life really started revolving around sport.
Okay. And then what steps did you take? When did you realize, "Oh, this is something I can be really, really good at?" And then how did you get to the point where I can be a professional triathlete?
Mhm. Um, well, definitely not early on because I was coming in
Yeah.
close to last. But when I noticed that the consistency and then the more structured training, that there were like little jumps, and then learning the history of the sport and finding out that there hadn't been a pro Black woman, that kind of piqued my curiosity. Like, how do you go about getting a pro card and things like that? And I found that the longer the race, the better I did, and I knew eventually I'm like, "Oh, I want my big goal to do a half Ironman." And I knew
Right.
I would need a coach to get me there so that I could understand, like, nutrition and, how to feel when you're on the bike and eat and, all that stuff. So, it wasn't just the light switch, like I wanna be pro. It wasn't like that. I
Yeah.
just knew that there would be steps to take in order to improve and, get to a competitive level. Like, I've been with my Coach Johnny now for years, and remember when he first agreed to coach me, he's like, "This isn't gonna happen overnight. It's gonna take months, years of stringing together consistent training, and, like, really, like, an endurance sport is something that your body needs to adapt to."
So this is a question I'm going to ask you, and I don't like this question because a lot of Black women get asked this question,
Mhm.
but I'm going to ask it. Why do you think there wasn't enough representation or women out there competing in triathlons? I remember a couple years ago, one of my best friends ran a triathlon over in Oceanside in California,
Which
and she was literally the only Black female out there out
Mhm.
of all those people. And I thought about you, and I just wonder, is it something where like we're not welcomed or we just don't know that we can do it? What's your take on it?
Well, I think everybody has their own unique experience. For me, it wasn't as daunting in a way because I went to predominantly white, all girl Catholic school. So, and I was on the swim team and I was the only Black girl on the swim team for years. So I never felt actually out of place when I was in triathlon. I noticed, but, and I would say it's not just specific to Black women, but it's more Black Americans in general, male
Mhm.
and female, because of the high rate of Black people who can't swim is part of it.
Mhm.
For us women, our hair, I
Yes.
know when I first started, actually, years ago, I was still getting a chemical relaxer to keep my hair straight,
Yeah.
make it more manageable. When I started swimming in the pool and I was in the flurry, my hair started breaking out. And, so I think that can deter some women from wanting to do it. Like, I don't feel like dealing with
Sure.
my hair. And,
Yeah.
and then you have to, if you work a full-time job, you're going from the pool swim practice in the morning to work and trying to manage that. And so it's finding ways to, get to figure out how much all that is worth it. I
Yeah.
guess in some ways that
Sure.
might sound vain, but and then there are other barriers like how expensive the sport is when you want to get to the
Mhm.
competitive level and um seeing other people that look like you, maybe you do feel uncomfortable as the only out there or the token and like how
Right.
welcoming is this space gonna be?
Right. It's interesting how you answered it because, I grew up in an all white neighborhood. I've always been the only one up until I would say college when I ran track in college. And you just get used to being comfortable in that environment and you hear things, you see things, and it's like, yeah, okay, that's what I'm kind of used to. So it's okay. And I
Right.
think a lot of times we don't, if you haven't grown up in that environment, you don't like hearing things or being or you feel a certain way.
Mhm.
And as far as like the hair and stuff, I decided, I think 10 years ago, I'm going to live in a ponytail. Maybe 20 years ago, I'm going to live in a ponytail. So,
Same.
it's never going to be like perfect. So,
Right.
well, I think that's another decision too. So, how did you manage that coming from the pool to work or having to go somewhere after you've gotten out of the pool and your hair, even or after a hot run? How are you handling? Now I
I'm
think
a
about
stick.
with no chemical.
Accepting them, I'm just gonna look a hot mess, really. And spending way too much money at, CVS or Walgreens or Target on like a
Yes.
gazillion products and looking at how what gel they use to keep their curls, and I have no curl pattern and, it's just really experimenting and, um, putting my goals above I hate saying the word vanity, but above that. And you're like,
Of
okay,
course.
well, I'm gonna look like this, but it's because I'm doing this and this is my goal. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. My life is running. I love being active. This is the
Mhm.
hairstyle that everyone's gonna see me in. I look even worse today, but it's because I'm working out and that's all I think about is when's my next workout and when's my next race.
Right. Right.
You think I'm
Yeah.
going to the Olympics? I am not.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, how do I
So
justify that I'm doing this all day, every day?
exactly, exactly. So in 2019, you had a bike crash,
Yeah.
and I would like for you to talk about that because you posted everything, and that's what I love about you. You're very open. You do share your experiences. What happened? How did it happen? And then how did you get through that?
Yeah. Gosh, sometimes it feels so long ago, and then other times it feels like just yesterday because it had such a
Really?
big impact on my life and my journey. So 2019, I went into this race in Texas. It was in Galveston, Texas. It was a half Ironman, and I had put together like a really long, hard winter of training, and I was hitting splits and numbers and putting in so much volume throughout the winter. And I was building off of this amazing year that I had in 2018. I had been on the podium at every Ironman 70.3 I had done. I was, just dropping such fast times. I was running, sub 130 off the bike in the half marathon, which I couldn't
Yeah.
even do previously just in a standalone half marathon. So I figured like, okay, 2019 is going to be my year. I just want to get my pro card, knock it out of the park. In order to get your pro card, you have to come in top 3 amateur overall at these races
Oh, wow.
with the
Okay.
pro field. So I needed to be
Okay.
top 3 in the
Mhm.
amateur field. There were pros in the
Mhm.
race, but I needed to be top 3. So, and I don't know, I think some of the other races I come in like 7th or 9th, I was like kind of flirting with it. So anyway, put in this block training, go to Texas, and I did the swim. It was, 1.2-mile swim. I wasn't exactly in the best place in the swim, but another thing that had freaked me out a little going into that race was it was age graded start or age group start. So
Mm.
they tell you what time you go based on your age group that you're in. And more and more races were rolling starts where you kind of seed yourself depending on how fast. Like if you go to a 5K or whatever, the fastest people usually line up
Yep.
first and then all
Mhm.
the slowest people. So, but triathlon was still not entirely like that. And unfortunately, I was in one of the last age groups. So
Oh,
by the
wow.
time I got on the bike course, and this race had, I don't know, 2,000 people or something, but by the time I got on the bike course, it was super crowded. And you have people who, it's their first one. They don't necessarily know the rules of the road. Like you're supposed to ride on the right, you pass on the
Yep.
left, you're look, over your shoulder in case anybody's coming. And I'm flying, going like
Yeah.
we had the tailwind. So, and I didn't just, I was going well over 25 miles per hour. And yeah, the next thing I know, I wake up and I'm in the ER and
Oh my gosh. So you don't even remember?
no, no memory at all. I woke up and I thought I had been in a car accident. I was like in a lot of pain, but drugged up, and um, I was trying to. I had a kit on, but I guess they cut it off me, so I was naked
Yeah.
under the sheet, and I have plastic surgeons standing over me, and they're trying to explain to me what happened, and I didn't really believe it at first, and I asked to see a mirror because they told me like my nose was broken, and they had to do about 40 stitches to sections of my face, and um, I had like fractured my mouth, so my teeth were loose. It was just
Oh my
whole
gosh.
thing.
Sika.
Yeah, it was awful. It was
I mean,
really
I've
just
read it, but to hear you explain it, it's just, oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah, I was just I was just in shock. I just couldn't believe it. When I saw what I looked like, I really couldn't believe it. And I'd say this all the time, but when I first saw myself, first thing I thought, because I was single at the time, I was like, "Oh my god, nobody's ever gonna wanna date me ever again, be single the rest
I
of
say
my
that now,
life."
and I'm perfectly fine. So yeah, oh my god.
So, yeah, it was just another thought was like, "I quit. I'm done. This isn't worth it."
Mhm.
You go from, "Am I paralyzed? Can I move? Okay, now what do I look like? How is this gonna impact me the rest of my life?" You have to get tests done to see,
Right.
how if you have, uh, traumatic brain injury and just, like, so many things, and so I was in pretty rough shape after, I left. I flew from Texas. I stayed with my parents. I couldn't take care of myself on my own. I couldn't even eat solid food. They had to put a
Mm.
splint in my mouth to hold my teeth in, and, yeah, I stayed with my parents and just went to doctor appointment after doctor appointment. Yeah, it was really tough.
And how long were you recovering with your parents? How long was that?
I stayed with them the first, I wanna say 2 weeks?
Okay.
Yeah, 2 weeks. But
Yes.
by the 3rd day, I have a very close relationship with my dad. He comes to happened to not be at my race that day, but, um, yeah, he comes to most of my races, and he asked if you knew all this was gonna happen, that you'd end up crashed and broken and, the face scarred and everything else, but you would then go on to become the first Black woman to get a pro card. Would you still have gone through with it? And I was like, "Yes, definitely." So, I think when I said that to him, I'm like, "Okay, then I'm not done. Like, there's still
That's
more
incredible.
there."
That's incredible. I listened to the story. I guess, I've read about it. I've seen it, posted online. I know how fast 20 miles per hour is on a bike. I've done it, and that is one of my biggest fears is to fall.
Mm.
I've fallen off a bike, so not to your extent. And to have a father like that is amazing.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about your dad because my dad holds a very special place in my heart as well. And so, um, tell me how your parents are in your life with all these different changes that you've gone through,
Mhm.
and how do they help you get through it?
Yeah, my mom is more of the nurturer, and, when my dad saw me, he got me, from the airport, and when my dad saw me, he was like, "Oh my gosh, like you look like you got into a fight." We went a few rounds with Mike Tyson, kind of funny. He knows how to make light of situations. My mom's like, "That's not funny. This is
Yeah,
serious."
that's
And,
my mom.
yeah, she's just very loving and nurturing. And, she was the one who scheduled all my appointments, drove me to all my appointments. I cried to her a lot during that time period. My dad was the one that kind of kept my spirits up and had me looking forward instead of looking back on what, happened and what I had potentially lost and stuff like that. It was just very much like, no, like, this is where you're at now. This is your path. This is, um, it's just now a part of your journey. And he's like, you never know. This might be one of the best things that never happened to you. So that was my dad's mindset. But when I did decide immediately, like once I got clearance to start working out again, my mom was freaked out about that, but my dad was encouraging and yeah, I would say they just balance each other really well, and so that helps me stay in a good mindset.
And what made you start working out again? Because I know that a lot of people go through something as serious as your crash and they can't see the forest for the trees. They're like, I'm good. I'm just gonna stay here in this lane. But you got back, on the bike, so to speak, and you got back out there. What made you do
Right.
that?
Yeah, I had put my story out there, publicly. I had a blog at the time. I started blogging from when I did my very first triathlon all the way to when I got my pro card, but I decided to, with my dad's encouragement, post the pictures, tell the story of what happened, but that I was gonna continue on and that my goal to get my pro card was not, like, in vain, like, I still wanna keep going with it, and so when I put the pictures out there, I didn't realize how many people were following the story and reading my blog, and I had just, uh I couldn't believe how many people had reached out and they, I guess, spoke to my parents, got their address. I received cards and flowers and some from little kids with drawings, like, good luck, Sika. And I'm like, okay, so this matters. Like, I felt at that moment, okay, a representation really matters. And I had done some public speaking at school and everything before the accident, like young middle school, preschool. And I always told him about the importance of not giving up. And I thought about that as well. I'm like, I can't be out here preaching this and then I just give up. So
Right.
it was a mix of that. And then also when you're working out like twice a day, every day, and then all of a sudden you're just laying in the bed, staring at the ceiling, you start going crazy. So it's
Yes.
like, I got to get back out there. I can't just be laying around here.
Oh my gosh. And so are you still doing triathlons now, or
I
are you?
retired last
That's
year.
what I thought. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. What made you retire, and how do you feel about that?
Gosh, this is such a weird transition in my life now. So I can't say I had a lot of fun early on chasing my pro card. And then I felt like I accomplished what I had set out to do. I wanted to see a Black woman on the pro start line. I got to do it several times. And that fire and drive just actually wasn't there. I'm like, well, what am I focused on now? What is my goal? And it's you're out there for hours. So that's a long time to be just
It's a long
suffering if
time.
you don't have like your why.
Right.
And so one of my last ones, I think it was Ironman 70 point through Oregon. I remember in the swim feeling like, oh, I just want this to hurry up and be over. And I'm like, maybe I'll feel better when I get on the bike. And then like 30 miles on the bike, I'm like, yeah, not really enjoying this anymore.
I
Yeah.
know that feeling.
Yeah. So I'm like, and I told myself if I ever got to the point where it felt forced and that I wasn't really passionate about what I was doing, that it was time to take a step back and reevaluate.
And are you still, like, running, though? Are you doing your
Oh, I
marathons and everything?
am. Yeah. So I had always wanted to also dabble in ultra running. And so I've done a few races. When I decided to take a break from triathlon, I'm like, you know what? I want to try the 100K distance, the 62.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, and I had a lot of great endurance base, not so much run mileage, but from all the swimming and the biking and stuff. And so I did my first 100K, and I ended up breaking the Virginia state record. And
Oh
it
my
was like,
goodness.
I think it
Oh
was like
my good
top 10 time that year when I did it
Oh,
or
wow.
something. So yeah, so it was like, all right, well, that was fun. And Yeah, it's like you have to just keep reinventing yourself, I guess, to find the
Of
motivation.
course. Of course. And then earlier you said when you were in your crash, no one is going to want you, but obviously someone wanted you.
Mhm. Yes.
You found love.
Yes,
So
I
if you
did. I
don't
got
mind me
married.
asking, how did you meet him and when did all this happen?
Yeah, I got
And in the
married
midst of all
last
this stuff.
year.
Oh,
Yes. Thank
congratulations.
you. Thank you. We met 2022, and
Okay.
it was on one of those dating apps. It's so sad. I kept asking him. I don't even remember which one it was now. Maybe Bumble. I don't know. The crazy thing is, we lived around the corner from each other out here for like 4 years and somehow never saw each other, never crossed paths,
Wow.
and literally right around the corner from each other.
Wow, that's fantastic. So
Yes.
I love this conversation with you. I could probably go another 30 minutes, but I will not keep you there any longer. But what would you have to say to the audience when, they're going through something, they're going through challenges and they just don't see the forest for the trees? And I know that you've been there. What advice would you give to them?
Oh, think just tomorrow is always a new day. You never know what's gonna happen. Like, had I stayed in my funk through the divorce and didn't put myself out there and try triathlon, then I wouldn't have been on this amazing journey. If I didn't get back up after my crash, then I wouldn't have gotten my pro card. It's like something that I love that my brother said to me when I was like, "Oh, what if I quit?" Oh, this is after the accident. He's like, "Well, what if you keep going?" And so I say that to myself sometimes when I'm uncertain of the future or holding back or hesitant. I'm like, okay, well, if I don't do this, you never know. But if you do it, then you might, discover something amazing or find something new about yourself or, acquire a new talent or whatever else. So, yeah, just like always look forward, like learn from the past, but keep looking forward.
Exactly. And I also like the fact that, you said that last triathlon you did, you're just like, once you got on the bike, you're like, nope, I'm good. This is it. And I think if you keep going, you might get burnt out, but there's always another path. There's always somewhere else you can go and try and do. So I just want to thank you so much for your time on the Risers Hub. I think this podcast is going to help a lot of women out there who are going through challenges and they just need to hear someone say, keep going. So thank you so much. And I appreciate your time.
Yep, thank you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. To learn more about the Risers Hub, check us out at therisershub.com or follow us on Instagram at The Risers Hub. This podcast is meant for both education and entertainment purposes only. I am not a licensed therapist, so it's crucial to consult your physician, psychotherapist, or qualified health professionals. Until next time, and as always, take care and keep rising. If you're enjoying this podcast, I would like to ask you to please subscribe, like, and share. I mean, that's what they told me to say. So can you hook a girl up? Thanks. Bye.